Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Kalwas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about the nuts and bullets of research. Learn about research, what is research philosophy, what is research paradigm, what is scientific research attitude, what is the tree analogy of research, what is qualitative and quantitative research. So you will get the best insight about all these things as we have an expert with us today in this session. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank the Kalwas for arranging such a enlightenment sessions, for their support and for providing such a wonderful platform to us. The aim of the Kalwas is to give you the opportunity to interact with the world renowned speakers, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, professionals, and businessmen to share their views and experiences and tips which will create an impact and will enable you to learn new things and develop yourself in order to grow individually as well as to contribute to the world at large. As our slogan is to come, learn, and share knowledge. So today our guest is very special person who has vast experience in an internationally known personality. He's a great human being. We always see him while contributing to the field and to the world in different ways. Above everything, he is always ready to share his knowledge. He is very generous on that. Let me introduce him formally. He is currently working as a professor in the School of Business Innovation and Technopreneurship at University Malaysia Perlis. He received his bachelor degree from the International Islamic University Malaysia, MBA and Doctor of Philosophy from University Science Malaysia. He also completed an advanced diploma in teaching in higher education from the Nottingham Trent University. Moreover, an award-winning academic and researcher, he received the Raffles Education Founder Award for being most deserving academic staff of Olympia College Malaysia in 2006, Excellent Academic Staff Support Award in 2009, the Best Lecturer Award in 2010, the Best Supervisor Award in 2018 and 19 for producing the most number of PhD graduates, and Research Excellence Award in 2020 at University Malaysia Perlis. He also won the Best PhD Thesis Award 2011 for the Outstanding PhD Dissertation at University Science Malaysia. He is a member of Asia Academia of Management, Malaysian Institute of Management, an associate member of Malaysian Finance Association. He is a visiting professor of Northern University, Bangladesh, that is Daffodil International University, and East Delta University, Thammasat University, Thailand, and an academic advisor at Central College, Penang. In addition to that, he has authored and co-authored 5 books, 2 book chapters, and about 200 research papers. With that, his writing have so far attracted more than 550 reads in the ResearchGate and about 4,600 plus citation in the Google Scholar. 20 students completed PhD under his supervision, and currently he is supervising PhD 15 students and 15 postdoctoral scholars. Moreover, his research has spanned issues related to entrepreneurship, IPO underpricing, earning management, blockchain, blue economy, Islamic finance. He is known for his excellence and admired by the people around the globe. So, please help me in welcoming our guest, the one and only Prof. AMINUL Islam. Welcome to the Kalwas platform again, Prof. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, and very good evening. In Pakistan now, in 5 p.m. right? In 5
Yes,
p.m.
Prof.
Pakistan now.
Yeah.
I believe we do have participants from other parts of the world. So good morning, good afternoon for
Yes.
those of
Yes.
you who are attending from other parts of the world.
Yes.
First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Haider Shah, for
Pleasure.
inviting me and getting me on to his sessions.
Yeah.
I see every week he got many sessions with many different personalities, many great academics from different parts of the world.
Yes.
So it is a privilege for me to be a part of these knowledge sharing sessions with Kalwas.
Yeah.
Um, Today's session, basically Dr. Haider Shah has chosen the topic.
Yes.
So I did a webinar somewhere, I think 1 year before, in one of the university in Kashmir. The title was Nuts and Bolts of Research. So Dr. Haider Shah said he somehow likes the idea
Yes.
of that. So I will be looking into that. I'm not going to use the same slides, of course.
Yes.
The one I used 2 years before. Is my sound very clear, audible?
Yes, Prof. It's very clear. It's wonderful, and you looks very full of energy. And I'm sure this session is going to be rock. As we got a lot of audience requests to have another session with you. That's why we have requested you for another session, and you are the guru in the field. So it would be wonderful to listen you again. So just a quickly reminder to the audience that the format of this session would be that Prof. Aminul Islam will be presenting, and audience, you can ask question directly from the speaker, but of course at the end of the session, if it is not covered in this session, and you can write in comment section, or you can email us on info@kalwas.com. So let's get started, and over to you, Prof, please.
All right, thank you. So the reason we choose the topic, research, understanding of research, to many researchers is very shallow. And to some extent, we do have misunderstanding on many components and parts of research. So I wanted to compare research with a car, right? I do have a tree analogy where I compare research components with the branches of tree and the parts of every elements of a tree. And I'm going to discuss that today also a bit. So when you talk about a car, the car that we see, that is the title of a research. By looking at the title, you know what kind of research you're going to have, or what the research area and all that. Whether the title is relevant, something beneficial, something useful for people, something very updated one. When you look at the car, you know whether it is the latest model or it is not the latest model. So looking at the title of a research itself, you would know what kind of research it is. So when you look at PhD thesis, the cover page, when you read the title, you know what do we expect from this thesis. So when you look at the car, the beauty, external beauty that you see, the exterior design that you see, that is not everything. Whether the car will run smoothly or not, it depends on many things that is inside. So you have many components of the car, and you have many nuts and bolts, smaller parts that actually screwed together that makes it a car. So if external way, it looks very beautiful, but if the nerves and bolts are, the nuts and bolts are not strong and truly screwed rightly, then the car may not function. While you start driving, it may just break down. Okay, so that's what research is all about. Research is similar to like coming out with a car, building a car. So you have many components in a research, many parts of research, many nuts and bolts are there, which got to be screwed up, right? Rightly to make sure that you have the right kind of research. Because research is undertaken with an identified research gap, with an identified, defined research problem. And with that, we aim to have some common outcomes at the end of the research. Okay, so with this introduction, let me share my screen and we'll start the session. Give me a few seconds.
Sure, Prof, please.
Is
Yes,
my
Prof.
screen visible? Okay.
Yes, Prof, it's visible. Carry on, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
All right. So this is the topic: nuts and bolts of research. And my school name has been changed, so I did not share it with Dr. Haider Shah. We now in our university we had some kind of a consolidation program, and we have gone back to faculty system. So few schools joined together, become a faculty. So now I belong to Faculty of Applied and Human Sciences of University of Malaysia, Perlis. All right. This one, we usually only start with that. Research is basically, as I said always, it's an organized, objective, and systematic process with a particular problem that needs a solution, right? So if you have a problem, then only we proceed to do a research. And that's where many misunderstandings are there. When you would like to pursue a PhD or master by research, or would like to undertake a research to publish a good paper, we simply just pick up something and we like to do research. That's not the right way of doing it. We, as a researcher, our mind got to be inquisitive, and then we have to pick up a problem that is affecting the society, industry, or the human being, humankind, the country, or the world at large. And then when we review literature, we read books, and we search for some solutions for it. We don't find solutions available. Then we think of undertaking a research. All right. So if there is no problem, there is no research. Research involves a lot of activities that requires a lot of stamina, a lot of cost. It is time consuming, and many other things are there. Efforts are given a lot to undertake a research. So if there's no problem, then it should not be undertaking a research. But as we start doing the research, the journey is not that smooth. There are a lot of challenges there when you undertake a research. Okay, so this is how it is compared to like somebody who is running with the obstacles. When you undertake a research, every steps of research you will have obstacles. Those of you who have completed PhDs, you know how difficult it was, the journey was. So when you face with some kind of hurdle, and we have to find a way to solve it, and we have to cross that. So once you cross one hurdle, then you go for some time smoothly, then again you face another hurdle and you have to cross it. So undertaking a research is not that simple. Once you do it, then you will face a number of obstacles depending on kind of problem that you have in hand. Okay. So research is undertaken to fill up the gap, research gap. So the problem there, as you see at the bottom, I show you two parts of the bridge, right? Possibly they are not connected. So that is the gap, and you have to find a way to fill up the gap so that human being or some vehicle can cross. So when you are doing a research, at the end of the research, we'd like to see a solution to fill up the gap that you see, so that it can be benefiting to everyone. Everyone. That's how we look at. But when we start research, that's how it is. The journey it is. It is very slippery journey, slippery ways. You may fall down at any time. Worldwide, research shows PhD students, 50% PhD student will drop out. So those enrolled, 50% of them will drop out, and 50% will complete. So the completion rate is only 50%. That is the lowest among all degrees that is offered by universities. So undergraduate student, the dropout rate is not that high. It could be 5%, 10%. Master's program could be even lower than that. But when it comes to PhD degree, the dropout rate is 50%. So the journey is not that comfortable, enjoyable journey. It can be comfortable, can be enjoying, provided you have enough adequate preparation before you undertake the journey. Okay. So if you look at it, you need many kind of competencies, abilities, capabilities, skills. Those are required for you to cross a slippery road like that. And when we start the journey, if you look at the slide I have given at the bottom, under the first slide, you can see one man is crossing the gap on the body of the other 3%. So what we try to mean by this slide is, when you undertake a research, it's impossible for you to complete research alone. All right. So what do? We start consulting people. Okay. So to finalize the title, finding out the research gap, defining research problem, will always encourage you to discuss with the academic staff, members, professors, experts that you have in the academic world. We do also encourage you to consult with industry experts who are dealing with the kind of problem that you are looking at to solve and find out some kind of solutions. Okay. So when you complete the research, and at the end of it, and you publish, and then you put it in the Facebook, I got one paper published. So it seems you are the one did everything and you take credit for it. There's nothing wrong with that, but we should not be forgetting, or we should not forget to acknowledge, appreciate people who have assisted you to complete the journey and crossing the gap, crossing the bridge, crossing the slippery road and reaching the destinations, solving the problem and finding out solutions for people that could be beneficial, that could be relevant that can be helpful for people. Okay. Now let me start with this. This picture was actually posted by Dr. Faizan Ali, my good friend from University of South Florida, in his Facebook somewhere 1.5 years before. So he took it from the Forbes, Forbes magazine. So 2007, this is the cover story of Forbes. They say Nokia has 1 million customer. Can anyone catch the cell phone king? So 2007, Nokia was the king. Everyone used to have Nokia phone. When it comes to mobile phone, it is Nokia. But then iPhone was also released earlier, and Forbes failed. The journalists who wrote this story, they failed to see the revolution taking place in the mobile phone industry. And just after a few years, Nokia is out of the market. Now, if you talk about Nokia, people will be laughing at you, right? The kind of Nokia phone set, the mobile set you see in the market, not many people will buy. Nobody will get that, okay? So what I try to mean is that it is all about research and development activities that keep you updated, that keep you going. The countries that are leading the world, the country that's developing faster, the country who are leading us, is because of the research and development activities they undertake. All right. In Asia, most of us, when we do research, we replicate original researches undertaking in the developed world. Of course, there are many of us who will do genuine novel research, but most of us will just replicate research undertaken in the developing countries or developed countries. And we'll argue during the PhD session, this research has been undertaken in developed countries, but has never been done in Bangladesh, my Bangladesh and Pakistan, in my countries and all that. That kind of argument would be there to show that this is something new in my country, but not to the world. So a good researcher, somebody who like to be known in his field, would like to shine and come up in his area of research, should be undertaking a novel research. So that kind of novel research should be something totally different, something totally updated, that keeps you that keeps you like at the edge of from others. So he will shine with that kind of research. So when you choose a title, so make sure you choose an updated title, not older version of research been undertaken some other place and you're doing a research in your context, in your country, okay? Well, with that, conceptualizing the research study, the title itself, as I said, is very important. Looking at the car, you know what car it is, how it looks like, and how it could be functioning, okay? And as that the car moves on, you know, by looking at the sound and all that, you will know how beautiful the car is, what are the functions are there by looking at the car itself. So that is the title of research. Looking at the title of research itself, people should have feeling that it is an updated research. It is something meaningful. It is something relevant. It's something useful. It's something beneficial. That kind of feeling should be people should be having once they look at the title itself. And then people started moving on. So you open the door of a car. What do you see now? You sit on the steering wheel, and you see whether everything is tip top, everything updated, everything looks like a very special. So that is research problem. So when we open up a research paper, the first introduction you read that actually the part where research problem is highlighted. So it's the same like you open up a car and you sit down on the driver's seat and look at the steering wheel and all other functions that you have in front of you. Okay, so from there you move on. You look on the purpose statement, research question, research objectives, and you move on to research hypothesis. All that. That is conceptualizing the research study. There is a flow that we have. The ideas should be flowing, starting from the research gap, research area that is identified, the title that is finalized, and then cascading down to research problem until the research hypothesis. These are the components of an empirical research. So you have a research problem being identified, and then you transform them into research question, research objectives, and so on. At the end, you will have some kind of recommendations, all right? So similar to, as I said earlier, when you look at a car, you have many different parts in the car, right? When the car engine is open up, you will be shocked to see the number of nuts and bolts and screws are there. You'll be shocked to see that, okay? So when you undertake a research, people start reading your thesis. Inside, as they move on, they find many things. And all this, everything comes together it become a good thesis. All right. So that's how it is, the component of empirical research. So today I'm going to highlight this component together with some of the nuts and bolts. As I said at the beginning, you may have beautiful components, beautiful car, beautiful parts in a car, but if the nuts and bolts are not right is good, then the whole car will break down and you have a problem. So in a research, you have to learn every elements, every parts of research together with the smaller parts. That's what I call it as nuts and bolts, so that the research that you complete will shine up and tell people that you have conducted actually a very good research. This is what I discussed in my last webinar with you. So I'm not sure whether I should explain, but maybe let me take just a few minutes. This is a tree analogy that I came out from my own thinking. I compare a research with a tree, and I compare basically research problem with the root of the tree. All right. So research problem, a tree, whether it is good or not, if there is any problem, you can easily see on the leaves. All right. That's what I call a literature review. Or if the tree is not giving fruit, so you know some problem is there. So the problem will always come from, most of the time, in a tree, the problem comes from the roots. So either it is having shortage of water, or not having a right kind of soil, the soil quality and all that. It could be some fertilizers are needed. Okay, so these are the things that we have. So that's what I call it a research problem. So if you identify it correctly, then it can be exhibited looking at the fruits, the outcomes that you have. So that's a research outcome. So if you identify a research problem correctly, then you will have a good solution. So that is what we call research contribution or outcomes. Okay, and what beautifies the tree is the leaves, right? The leaves. The thing that beautifies the tree is the leaves. So the color of the leaves, if even it is greenish, see if the tree is having problem, then it become yellowish, and you know the tree is having problem. Okay, so when you read a research paper or when you read a research thesis, when you read literature, we would know exactly how well structured is your argument, right? That's where you will identify the underpinning theory, supporting theories, supporting literature, and all that. You will argue, on supporting your case that is being identified as a research problem. So the beautification of your thesis, your research paper, is done by literature review. That comes from other people, right? And the branches of the tree, I compare that with underpinning theories. Branches are very, very, very important. If branches are not strong enough, then if you have a lot of fruits on the tree, the branches will be broken. So the tree would not be able to hold the fruits that you have. Okay, and then I compare the body of a tree with theoretical framework. As you know, in a research, I'm going to show you today a theoretical framework. I will have discussion today. So the body of the tree, even more important than the branches of the tree. Okay, so if the body of a tree is not strong, even the roots are very strong. Body is not strong, then you have a problem. Okay, the simple storm, light storm may break it down, or heavy rain may make it fall. Okay, so theoretical framework in a research got to be very, very strong. Okay, in a qualitative research is conceptual framework. In a quantitative research is a theoretical framework, got to be very strong. And I compare that with the body of the tree. And of course, the outcome with the fruits that you see. All right. So research, when you do, most of the time research are replicated, and we do replicate and we do conduct research. Even though millions of people have done research before, still we undertake research because environment keeps changing. The lifestyle of people changing, the way we work, the way we think, the way we mingle around with people, the way we network with people, the way we socialize. Everything keeps changing due to the advent of and advances of technologies and all that. Okay, so if we conduct research in the area where thousands of people have done a research, then definitely we have to have something new. And that is what we look at the tree. So if you are planting a tree and it gives the same fruits that everybody gave, then you are not having anything new. So if your tree gives more fruits, then that is a contribution. If your tree fruits are more delicious, nutritious, then that is a contribution. If your tree fruit size is bigger than normal size of a fruit, that is a contribution. So there are many ways of contributing. So in your research, that's what we like to see. Even though research have been done before, but again, when we look at the outcome of your research, maybe you have modified the theory, you may have extended the existing theory, you may have integrated the existing theories, all right, you may nullify the theory, okay, you say that no, this food is not good for health, that is nullifying a theory. So there could be many ways of proving that you got something new in your research, okay. So let me move on. That's research problem, right? Earlier I said, which is the most important part of the research. All right. So this is the most important component. I won't say this is a component, it is a nuts. Okay. It's a nuts together with some bolts. Bolts and nuts comes in research gap. Okay. We have to identify a research gap successfully, rightly, and then only we would be able to define our research problem. Okay. So research gap is a kind of nuts or bolts of the research. So research gap is what? It's basically an unexplored topic revealed during a literature search that has a scope for research or further exploration. So once you start looking at some kind of research area you have identified, you have interest in certain kind of area, you have certain skills, abilities, capabilities to undertake research in certain areas. Say, for example, my area of research is finance. So if I want to do research in finance, my quantitative understanding got to be very strong. I must be familiar with software like SPSS, software like Stata, Amos, the kind of software I got to be very, very familiar in order to undertake research in finance, right? So when I have good skills and equipment, abilities, capabilities that is needed to undertake research in certain area, then we have to identify unexplored topic that is not really explored well by previous researchers. So that is a research gap. Okay, so we are seeing the gap is considered the missing piece or pieces in the research literature is the area that has not been explored or underexplored. Has not been explored. No one has explored in that kind of research area or that topic, or maybe they explored, but it is still underexplored. Still, there are avenues for you to further explore, further undertake research in that area. So, okay, so it could be a population, different location, different research method, employing different data collection and analysis method, or employing different variables, looking at different kind of theories and all that. Okay. Now, research gap, many of us, we do have misunderstanding. The research gap only comes from literature, which is not true. Which is not true. Literature gap may come from various areas. It may come from empirical gap, which is research gap. It may come from knowledge gap, that is theoretical, theoretical and some other gap. Also, we can add in the existing knowledge is not enough, so you need to have more knowledge. So knowledge gap could be the evidence. You do not have sufficient evidence to prove that the problem is solved. The problem does not exist. So theoretical gap, there are many theories available, but none of the theory or even combination of theories cannot explain certain phenomena. So theoretical gap is there. Population gap, people explore to certain kind of population and they miss or they ignore certain part of population in a country. So this population gap could be there. We have policies and procedures, especially developing countries. We are very good in designing policies, but we are very bad in implementing those policies. So if you find policies are there, procedures are there, but problem is still persists. So you would like to conduct a research. Why is that? Policies are there, but the implementations are not there. For example, most of our countries, we have strong policies on sexual harassment. But does sexual harassment reduce? Is sexual harassment reducing in the world? Not really. It's increasing. But the policies are getting stronger and stronger, and yet the harassment is increasing. Why? So you may want to do a research. So there is a gap. You have policies, procedures, but implementations are weak. You are not getting the kind of output you would like to get. Okay, so that is also a research gap. You may have also a methodological gap. Previous research is conducted by people, use certain methodologies which suffers from many weaknesses. So we'd like to employ different methodology in conducting research. So your research gap come from various areas, okay? So there's a lot of misunderstanding here, a lot of controversies here, okay? So you got to look at many different diverse areas actually where you can identify the research gap. So I am recommending that if you need to do a thorough review of existing literature, then you have to do it in a broad and then specific areas. So that's what we suggest. You start with the world view, then you come to the regional view, and then you boil it down to your own context, the country perspective, while you do literature review. And that will help you to identify the literature gap that is available. Okay. So whether a literature gap is identified or not correctly, then I am recommending that you should be asking yourself these 4 questions. Okay, so what is your topic? If you know your topic itself is fine. The second question, who are the key people in the field? And what are the key resources? So you're looking at the main theories, the most cited papers in the area. So identify those people and read their paper, okay, and understand that. So if you have the answers that you have identified all the key people, all the key papers, all the key works, all the key theories, that you are there. So you have the second question. The third question, what are the key ideas in your field and what methodologies have been used? Okay, so if you have answers with you of this question is good. What are the sum of the strengths and weaknesses of existing research, and what will your contribution be? At the end, you have to see whether you are going to contribute something. How will it be different? Whether your findings going to be different from others. That's what I said. You are planting a tree. Make sure your tree gives something different. Either the volume of fruits are more, the color of fruits is more beautiful, it's more nutritious, you know, the size is bigger. Something new has to be different. You've got to have something different from others. So you have answer of these 4 questions with you, then you should conclude that you have identified a unique research gap, and then you should proceed with your research. So once you have identified a research gap, then you look at the research gap, whether that gap is creating any problem for you, whether that gap is creating any trouble for anyone. Let me correct the spelling. Okay, research problem. All right, not sure why it happens. The spelling mistakes error. Okay. So once you identify the research gap, then you have to find out whether that gap is creating problem for someone. Say, for example, you are walking on the street and you just see small hole on the street. So you have to look, you have to ask yourself, does this hole going to disturb someone? No. Then why should you be bothered? So that's how it is. When you're conducting a research, identify research gap and ask yourself whether that research gap is troubling someone, is going to create problem for someone. If it is, then only you should continue to the next step, that is defining the research problem. Okay. So what is a problem? Basically, it's a question raised for inquiry, consideration, or solution, right? A concern, right? A question raised for inquiry. So you are having a question that doesn't have an answer and looking for inquiries and consideration and or finding a solution to it. So that's what you do, right? When you have a problem, either ignore them, we talk about them, we try to solve them. So as a researcher, our attitude should be to solve a problem. As I said, when you are walking on the street, you see a hole, it should raise a question in your mind. It is going to create problem for someone. Is this small hole on the street will create a problem for babies who are walking, or somebody who is riding bicycle, or somebody is running on the road? If doesn't, the stall is small, then you shouldn't be bothered. But again, it should raise some concern in your mind as a researcher. And if your conclusion is this hole is going to create problem, then you should do something. Either find out somewhere, brick or some sands and fill up the gap. That's what you're supposed to do, right? So that's what we're going to do by research. We are going to fill up the gap. So what is a research problem? It's basically an issue of concern that an investigator presents and justifies in a research study. Okay, a problem that someone would like to research, right? Anything a person find unsatisfactory, unsettling, or difficulty of some sort, a state of affairs that need to be changed. Okay, so a problem involves areas of concern to the researchers for condition they want to improve, difficulty they want to eliminate, or the questions which they want to seek answers. Okay, so these are some definition of research problem, which I think easily understood by those of you who are with me now. So these are the basically easier way of looking at the definition of research problem. It's a definite or clear expression of an area of concern, is a condition to be improved upon, a difficulty to be eliminated, a troubling question exists in the scholarly literature, existing practice that needs some kind of solution, a question that researchers want to answer. Okay, so the conclusion is on the research problem, if it's like identification of a destination before undertaking a journey. So if you are traveling to somewhere, you must have a reason to go there, right? If you don't have a reason, then you shouldn't be going. So research is undertaken. We have an identified research problem. You know you are going to find a solution to this problem. Then only you undertake the research. So if you don't have an identified research problem, you don't have a destination. So you should not be starting the journey. Okay, as we don't have a destination, you should not be traveling. If you don't have a predefined, outcome that you like to achieve, then you should not be undertaking research. So these are the few steps that we do to identify research problem. First of all, you have to outline your areas of interest. You choose a topic, you narrow down your topic, you identify your research problem, and finally you identify purpose of the study, right? So that's how we identify and define a research problem. And beside that, if you look at the both sides, I put certain points there. You have to read about the interest, talk to your colleagues, find out what others are doing, observe the environment, be curious, asking questions, right? These are very important elements in defining a research problem. Okay, so if research problem is not there, so then your research is not there. If there's no identified research problem, there's no research. Okay, there's no destination, then you are not traveling. So you should not be starting your research journey. You do not have an identified research problem. So I started with research gap, right? So now I look into research problem. So I'm going to flow it down from the beginning until the end of the research. Okay, so if you have joined me from the beginning, and if you continue with me until the end, you will see how research actually follows certain steps until the end. Okay, so there's a journey I'm going to show you. Whether a research is being identified or not, then again, I'm giving you a few questions. Like for research gap, I give you 5 questions, and here I'm giving you 4 questions to answer. For example, like what is the issue? What was the issue or problem you want to study? What is the concern being addressed behind the study? Why do we want to undertake this study? And why is this study important to the scholarly community? So if you have satisfactory answers to these 4 questions, then I would say that you have identified and defined research problem correctly. All right, let me proceed on. Now, categories of research. Now, we have identified research gap, and you have concluded that that gap is a problem, and you got to fill it up. As I said, when you're walking on the street, you got a hole, and you're concluding whether that hole is going to create trouble or not, right? So now you have identified the research gap, you have defined your research problem. Based on the research problem, then we have to decide what kind of research you are going to undertake. So there are basically 2 categories, qualitative and quantitative. But of course, there are ways where you need to mix it. That's one way it doesn't solve. It doesn't solve. So qualitative is basically understanding or exploring into finding out the reasons and looking at what governs the behavior of human being. The quantitative is study the systematic empirical investigation using the numerical quantitative numbers. Okay, and there are research problems which you may not be able to solve with qualitative alone or quantitative alone. So we may mix it. All right. So that's how we do it. We will mix it together. We may have a quantitative preceded by qualitative or qualitative preceded by quantitative. So that's what we have triangulation method. We may start with qualitative, then quantitative, followed by qualitative. There are a number of ways of combining qualitative and quantitative way of doing, and that's what is triangulation getting very popular. This is actually the true picture of how research studies are done. All research studies start with qualitative. If you have identified the research gap and defined research problem, and you cannot find any supporting theories, then you got no choice. You have to go for qualitative study. So you got no theories to explain. So you start qualitative study. So at the end of qualitative study, he will conclude with some assumptions and some hypotheses. And if you say, if it is a very big, research, a very good research, and it's a groundbreaking findings, then you may come up with a theory. At the end of qualitative research, you propose a theory. So if you come out with a theory, then you should be getting a Nobel Prize, the Nobel Prize. So that's how qualitative study is done. When there's nothing there, so it's grounded theory approach to continue and conduct qualitative study, and you end up with some assumptions, hypothesis, or theory. And that's where the quantitative study starts. Okay, so quantitative research starts where qualitative ends. So you start collecting data, collecting evidence. Then you employ certain softwares and all that, and you make a conclusion. You accept or reject hypothesis. From there, again, because you got no conclusion, new problem arises. Qualitative study will take on from there again. So it is a continuous process. So it started qualitative, then you continue quantitative, then it comes down again qualitative, we continue quantitative. That's how research is undertaken. Okay. So when you are looking at research field, identify the research field, and you like to undertake a research, and you see everybody has done everybody adopted quantitative method, it doesn't mean you cannot adopt qualitative method. If you see everybody has used qualitative approach, it doesn't mean it cannot employ quantitative study. All right, it can be done. So provided quantitative study will be undertaken, provided you have theories. So qualitative study, if they propose certain theories to you, then you should be proceeding with the quantitative study. Well, so I started with research gap, right? Identify research gap. Then we define research problem. Then we decided the kind of research problem that I have. From there, I decided which research, categories I'm going to take, either qualitative or quantitative. Okay. So once we decide, if it is qualitative, then it is going to be inductive, right? If it is quantitative, then it's going to be deductive, right? Last session I did talk about it. But before that, I would like to go into research paradigm or research philosophies. Those of you who have completed PhD, PhD is what? Doctor of Philosophy. It's not Doctor of Finance. I have done my PhD. They don't call me Doctor of Finance. It's Doctor of Philosophy. Every research that you do, it does have some philosophical foundation, which we often forget to take into account. When we read theses coming from developing countries, this is the missing part in our research. The philosophical underpinning, the philosophical background, the philosophical discussion on the research is always missing. But when you read theses coming from developed countries, this is the stronger part that we see. I read few theses from Australia, the Macquarie University, and theses are very good, in this aspect. The research paradigm, the philosophical underpinning of research being very strongly focused and discussed. Okay, let us understand that. Research paradigm is basically a set of common beliefs and agreements shared between scientists. So it is about how problems should be understood and addressed. So before you undertake research, you must understand how universally we look at things, how we look at things, how we view the things. So you're saying it's a world view about conducting research. Okay, so it provides researchers an idea to choose what kind of method or design we are going to choose. Okay, so this is something very important that we got to look at. So we look at ontology. Ontology is basically finding out the truth, right? What is the truth? So if you find a research problem there, then you'll be starting a question like whether the problem really exists. Okay, who decides the legitimacy, what is real, and how do researchers deal with different and conflicting ideas of reality? So you're trying to understand the reality. You look at it and you feel like, okay, you identified a research gap, and you feel like this is a problem. Is it a real problem? Does it really affect people? So different people tells you different things. So now you are going to find out the truth. Okay, so when it comes to ontology, the two groups of philosophers are there. First group believe there's only one single truth in it. So that is realist ontology. Okay, we call it realist ontology. This group of philosophers, people believe that there could be only one truth to a problem. So there could be only solution. Say, for example, like now COVID-19, it looks like the only solution is having vaccination. Looks like. Beside making your immune system stronger, having good, many other things and all that. But It looks like vaccine is the only solution now at this moment. But there could be few other solutions available. But the relativist ontologists, they believe that there may not be only one single truth. There could be more than that. Okay, there could be more than that. So you can construct the mind. So no one true reality exists. So you'll be looking at and constructing from one. So that's how we look at ontology, right? So you're looking at the worldview on the problem, right? So, and then we come to epistemology. You're talking about knowledge. So now you have to find out how to know the truth. So you would like to employ or adopt certain methodologies, certain methods, certain techniques to understand the nature of the truth. Okay, so we are saying knowledge is the nature and forms and how it can be acquired and how it can be communicated with other human beings. So now you are focusing on understanding the human knowledge and comprehension. Okay, so possibly you are going to extend or broaden or deepening the understanding in an area. So this is how it's a simple slide, but it speaks a lot. When it comes to ontology, you are going to answer the question of what is the reality, whether the truth is there, whether there is a real problem, and is it affecting people. Then epistemology, how or what or how can I know the reality? So how do I know whether that is affecting or not affecting at all? Okay. Then we move on to theoretical perspective. What approach can we use? Then we move to methodology. What procedure can we use to acquire knowledge? And then we employ the tools that can help us to acquire the knowledge. This method. And finally, we look at the data sources. All right, how can you collect the data? So when it comes to research philosophies, basically we look at the two broadly, categorized groups of philosophers. The first group we call it positivists. They believe in single reality. There could be only one solution. So we are looking at quantitative methods here. If you are employing research gap being identified, then research problem is defined, and then you choose, say, for example, based on the kind of problem you have, we choose qualitative. So then it's going to be constructivist, right? So there could be many different solutions to single problem. But if you are choosing for quantitative methods, and then definitely it's going to be positivist. Either you are going to accept the hypothesis or reject the hypothesis. Okay. So in a quantitative research, in a hypothesis, either you accept or reject. So there's only one single truth. But constructivist is different because you're exploring and you may have different truths. That's why we come out with assumptions. So at the end of qualitative research, you end up with assumptions, hypotheses, theories. But positivists, at the end of the research, you give a definite solution. Whether it is there, it is not there. So we say yes, hypothesis accepted or rejected. And there are cases whereby you may not have a single truth. It's difficult to provide one solution, or even the solution provided could be more than one, but the solution could differ from time to time, from one context to another. That's where we'll say it is a pragmatist group of philosophers. Okay, so they will continuously debate and interpret, and they come out with a better solution to it. And that's where we'll say you need a mixed approach, qualitative embedded with quantitative, or quantitative embedded with qualitative, or triangulation, whatever you call it. Okay, so this is something very important part of a research that we need to understand. Okay, so this is not a part of research, but this could be a nut or could be a bolt of research. So this could be few nuts and few bolts in your research that got to be embedded when you conduct research. Okay, this one I will leave it for your own reading. For the participants, I will share the slides with Dr. Haider Shah, and those of you will be filling in the form. He will share the slide with you, or he might be even putting it in his YouTube channel. Okay, before just beneath of the video, he may just attach it there. He may upload it there. Research approaches. So now let us recap. We started with identifying research gap. Then we have defined research problem. Then we categorize into qualitative, quantitative, mixed approach. Then we look at the philosophical foundation of research, right? Either positivists or constructivists. We look at that, and now we are coming down into research approaches. As I said earlier, if it is quantitative, then it is going to be deductive, because we start with the theory, and then we develop hypothesis, we collect data, we accept or reject hypothesis. Last webinar, I did explain this, so I will not take a long time, but I'll do little explanation if there are newcomers to my webinars today. Deductive approach is like you are landing in a beautiful garden and then you pick up the flowers that you like. So similar to a quantitative research, what we do is we look at existing theories and we identify the variables and we put it in the theoretical framework, and then we make a conclusion out of it. So you are not going to pick up everything here. So we'll not pick up every theories. We may not pick up every variable that we have. So if you have identified a research area, you may have read, say, 30 to 40 papers, and you have summarized about 20 variables. So it's impossible for you to test 20 variables. You might be taking just 4 or 5. So that's how it is, okay? If you have decided that the problem in hand requires qualitative approach, then it is definitely going to be inductive, right? This is something constructivist, right? The theoretical, philosophical foundation that you look into. So what you do in this case, we observe phenomena, we analyze the pattern, we formulate relationship. At the end, we may come out with hypothesis or assumptions, or the very best, we may come out with a new theory. This is how I explain the inductive theory. So you're landing on a plain, solid ground, and then you start plowing the land, then you planted the tree, you fertilize the tree, water the tree, and finally, you have the kind of flower that you wanted. So this is what we call constructivism, right? Constructivism. You are constructing the truth. You're constructing the truth, okay? The way you want, you construct it, develop it, okay? So that is inductive approach. So if your research gap is identified truly, you define it properly, the research problem, you followed on qualitative, and then constructivist, and finally you come down to inductive approach. Remember, as I said earlier at the beginning, a car, when you look at the car, all the parts, components that you see, the screws, bolts see in a tree, it is only suitable for that car, right? So those parts may not be fitting with other models of a car, okay? So here is like that. You're constructing inductive approach, you're constructing something that you need exactly what you need. So if somebody want to pick it here and then would like to fix somewhere, that's where they have to do some analysis and all that. That's why we'll take up the quantitative research. So now with research design been identified, research approaches been identified, then we'll move on into research design. This is another component of research, right? Component of research. So there are a few research design available. The first one is reporting. If you are just summarizing the data and just recasting the data for deeper understanding without really any deeper statistical analysis, you are just reporting from the data of your findings. That is reporting. Okay, so a thorough, robust research may not be completed with this kind of research design. You may have even descriptive research design. You try to discover answers to the question like who, what, when, where, sometimes how. Okay, so if you want to answer, if you have a research question, that question requires you to answer only these questions. Then you can proceed your research with descriptive research design. Or you can even attempt to predict when and what situation an event will occur. Okay, so when you have a research problem that requires you to provide some prediction of situation, prediction of solution, kind of solutions available, then you may proceed with the predictive research. Or you may continue to do explanatory research, whereby a problem which is not well researched before, and it demands some priorities and generate operational definitions and Bayesian research model, then you will be, it requires to have Bayesian research model, then you would be proceeding with explanatory research design. All right. And even if you want to go broader than that scope, research scope, then you will follow on to exploratory research. So there are 5 research design available. Which one should you choose? It's completely dependent on what kind of research gap identified and how you define your research problem. What kind of solutions are required? Depending on this, you may choose either one of these 5 kind of research design. All right, let me move on. Give me a few seconds. I take a bit hot water.
Sure, please.
That is the problem that we face when you conduct online sessions. Since I don't see you, so we are not physically meeting. So If it's a physical session, then I can ask you questions and session become more interesting. I can create some kind of inquisitive situation where everybody keeps asking questions and all that. That doesn't happen. All right.
Yes.
So we become like, all right, we have to continue. All right. Language of research is still, I would like to present in a way that so that you don't feel bored. Okay. Languages of research. These are some terms we always face. Whenever we read a research paper, you will always see these terms are there. So we call it research, language of research. These are the jargons that we use in almost every research. There are many, but these are the very common one when you read a research. But I will explain a bit later on. Don't worry. As a researcher, we got to understand also this is something very important when we are looking at data. Many times when I ask a student, what does it mean by data? They will come and say, Prof, I've collected my data. I will say, what did you collect? So I have collected data. What does it mean by data? So they will be looking at my face and wondering how to answer that question. So data are basically raw fact and figures. So when you are collecting secondary data, you are just collecting the raw facts and figures. If you are collecting primary data, you are also collecting raw facts and figure in different formats. You do a survey with a questionnaire, people fill in, these are the facts. They are understanding, right? Then if you are collecting data through in-depth interview or focus group, these are also raw facts and figures, okay? So all data are not relevant to everyone. Not all data are beneficial to everyone. Not all data are relevant to everyone. So when data are scanned, and make it useful for somebody, that one become information. Okay, so that is raw fact and information. So basically, when raw facts and figures are screened and scanned, and we find something relevant to you, and you screen and throw out the unrelated, not useful data for you, that it become information. Something useful. It's very easily understandable, so I'm not going to give you an example. And when someone has the possession of this information, then we will say knowledge. So when you call it this person is knowledgeable, what does it mean? He has certain information that you don't have. Or if I say that person is knowledgeable than me, what does it mean? That person has certain information that I don't have. Okay, so knowledge meaning having possession of information, having more information than me, so he's more knowledgeable. That's knowledge. And when somebody has the ability to apply the knowledge, we call it a technology. All right. So there are many people have knowledge, right? For example, like even you and me, we go to YouTube and see how a car is made. Then we understand after watching video many times, and we learn, okay, this is how the car is made. So I know I have the knowledge how to make a car, but if I don't have the ability to produce the car, then I don't have the technology. Okay, so these are the jargons, terms that should be understood properly as a researcher. Now, this one I do provide in many of my webinars. When you identify research problem, then many students have difficulties of portraying it and relating it to the theoretical framework. All right. So for me, the easier way to understand is the main topic, the main area of research is a dependent variable. Say, for example, this student look into the firm value of banks in Nigeria. So firm value, he has proved that through his literature review and other reviewing, he has proved that Nigerian banks are having problem in terms of firm value. The firm value tends to be decreasing. Okay, so that is a problem. So that is the research problem. That is an identified research gap. And now you want to find a solution to it. So what contributed to the decline of firm value? He look at financial and business risks. So you have credit risk, issue number 1, issue 2, 3, 4, 5. And then he found out financial innovation become very important. That's what he put it as moderating variable. So if you have the problem, you identify the issues, plot it the way I have plotted here. Your life would be very easy. Issue 1 is variable number 1. Issue 2 is variable number 2. Issue 3 is variable number 3, and so on. And your dependent variable is the main problem, the firm value. So easily the framework can be drawn. Okay. I do see, and many students also complain when they go to proposal defense examiners. Start asking them, What are the issues? What are the issues? And they sometimes fail to answer the questions. And many examiners will complain the issues are not identified properly. Okay, so meaning that the variables are not identified properly. So when you have the main problem, you have to identify what are the issues that are causing this problem. So those issues become your variable, independent variables or moderating variables. And this part is always missing in most of the research. When you write up a research and you do literature review, you claim you have read 100 papers or 200 papers in the reference list, and you say, I have exhaustive study of review of literature, and this is what I found. But those things that you have found from literature may not be relevant to the industry. So you have to connect it to the industry, link it to the industry, and that industrial data that you collect become your evidence to prove that actually the problem exists. Not only literature, also exists in the industry. So the research problem that you have, the research gap that you have identified, then define research problem. Now with the supporting evidence and data, you are making your case strong to conduct research. So again, here I have given you few issues here from the industry. Okay, high non-performing loans, weak liquidity management, high level of fraud, inadequate capital. So this is coming from industry. So you have the knowledge gap, and you have here the industrial gap or practical issues comes together that makes your research problem easily understandable. So you have a research gap, you have research problem strong. Okay, so this is the template that I have created for researchers to make researchers' life easier. All right. Now, let's move into the next component of research, theory and theoretical framework. This is how a theory is built. These are the building blocks of a theory. A theory basically starts with an idea. We all start with ideas. All research start with ideas. Ideas are actually the research areas that we find. Okay, I want to do a research, like that. So that is your research idea coming in. But not all topic ideas are researchable. So slowly we move into concept. So we see whether, I can visualize, symbolize something. The idea can be symbolized, can be visualized, can be easily understood. That's how I'd like to portray it. So it becomes concept. Not all ideas are good ideas, right? Not all ideas can be transferred into a concept. So we screen various ideas. So as those of you who have completed PhD, you will agree with me. We started with some kind of idea, and after some time we change, and then we change. We keep changing ideas of research, and finally we'll finalize our title and area of research. We continue. For me, when I did my PhD, I had to change my PhD title 3 times. Okay, 3 times. The idea that I had at the beginning, after 3 months of reading, I found data are not available. Then I studied another idea. Then after 3 months again, I found that's not researchable. So finally, I have to settle down with the third research idea that I had. Okay, so all theories start with ideas, but not all ideas are useful, could be relevant, could be researchable. So we have to screen, scan, and finally we convert them into some kind of concept that can be symbolized, that can be easily prostrated, right, by people, can be seen. Okay, when a concept can be measured, when the concept can be measured, that become construct. That is actually your variable. Okay, so variable and construct could be interchangeably used. So when a concept can be measured, it becomes construct. And when we have few construct and we assume relationship between construct, these are proposition or hypothesis. And when propositions or hypotheses are proved, it becomes a theory. So you can see how theory is related, how relevant the theory is in a research. Because you are starting with the research gap, that's where you have research ideas. Then you are defining research problem. Your ideas are screened, you see. Then slowly you develop a concept by reading, doing literature review, okay. And then you find out certain variables, all that. Those are the construct. So finally you come out some hypothesis, and finally you ended up with a theory. So a theory building blocks are these 4 building blocks. Any part of this missing, then you'll have a problem in your theory, right? So if you are doing a qualitative study, then you will end up with a concept. We'll start with conceptual framework, and we end up with proposition or theory. But if you are doing a quantitative study, then your theories are already there. You start backwards, and then you have assumptions there. You have construct, then finally you are coming out with a new idea. So it's just opposite from one to another. Okay, that's what I have shown you earlier with the inductive and deductive approach. So that's how it is: ideas to concept to construct to propositions to theory. Okay, so in a theory you have number of variable, dependent variable. That is the main theme of your study. Okay, independent variables are variables that affect the dependent variable, and then in between dependent, independent, you have intervening variables which are known as either mediating variable or moderating variable. Okay, but there are other two. Not many researchers are very familiar. So most of the researchers are familiar with independent, dependent, and in between mediating and moderating. But you may have in certain research problems, certain research gap that you have identified, you may have antecedent variable before independent or outcome variable after dependent variable. Okay, so I'm sure many of you never heard of it. But if you'd like to extend a theory, you'd like to integrate few theories, that's where, and looking at the research problem itself that you have, looking at the research gap you have identified, there could be a scope for you to introduce antecedent or outcome variables. Okay, so this is the theoretical framework if you are conducting a quantitative study. So if you look at that, so if I ask you which one is the dependent variable, I'm sure you can tell me internet abuse is the dependent variable, and we have these three independent variables. Okay, this theoretical framework cannot come just from my thinking. You cannot just come and say, Prof, I think these are the variables I want to study. I say, why you think about it? So anything you do research, there must be a supporting theories. Okay, so you have to have supporting theories. So these three independent variables you see are coming from TPB, theory of planned behavior. So any variable you pick up must be supported by theory. Okay, so many students will ask me, then how can I come out with something new? And then I will always tell them, you can always extend a theory or modify a theory. When you read a paper, make sure you read suggestion for future studies in every paper. That's where the researcher will tell that my research actually suffers from these are the shortages and limitations. And I recommend future researchers to test these other variables. So you can still use that one as a reference. And you introduce that new variable together with the framework. So with the TPB, with this three variable, you introduce another one which is being suggested in the future study section of a paper. And then you are extending the theory. If you can find it to be a significant effect on internet abuse, so you are extending the theory. So that becomes a huge contribution. Okay, that's how we come out with something new in a research. So here basically you have three hypotheses relation. We are assuming three relationship, right? Three independent to dependent. So you have three dependent hypothesis statement here. And I have written three hypotheses in three different ways so that you know exactly. There are many ways of writing hypotheses that can be written. Okay, this is earlier the problem research problem template that I have shown you. Based on those problems, this is the framework they have developed. Okay, so this is the one where I said I want to show you you can have antecedent variable. You see, this is a real PhD thesis framework. I wouldn't say which university thesis. One of my friends, he has done a PhD on this, and this is his framework. So he has this framework of independent variable and dependent variable. And before independent dependent, he has antecedent variable. And all in antecedent variable that you see also supported by theory. The first one, usefulness is of use. This is by TAM, right? Technology Acceptance Model. Those of you are familiar. Peer culture, supervisor culture is coming from social exchange theory and so on. This is another one, right? Moderating, I'm not going to show. This is mediation, how it looks like, right? Independent, dependent, and then you have that, okay? I'm running a bit faster because I do not want to bore you for too long, okay? This is what is called outcome variable. There are certain cases you may have outcome variable in a research. So if you concluded the study is saying that internet is being abused, and these are the factors contributing to internet abuse, and somebody asks you, so what? What happens if internet is abused? So just concluding, finding out, determining factors of internet abuse may not be enough. Some people may look for, the further questions, asking you, so what? What are the outcomes or the consequences of internet abuse? So these are the variables that can be proposed. So here the student has assumed, yes, make assumptions of internet abuse contribute to organizational outcomes and psychological outcomes. So if internet is abused, work inefficiency will be there. There will be security threats, and is also assuming that if internet is abused, the person will suffer from depression and loneliness, which is true, right? And this is also coming from theories. Okay, this is also coming from theories. So in a theoretical framework, it's not only dependent variable, but you may have mediating, moderating. But beside that, depending on the kind of research gap you have identified and research problem defined, you may have antecedent and outcome variables. If you have identified a research gap which is actually the antecedent or outcome, then you have to study that. I hope I made it very clear on it. Okay. Now, there are cases also, if you are doing a finance study or accounting or economics study, then you will have model. You would want to have conceptual framework for qualitative study or theoretical framework for quantitative study, but you can also have modeling like that. So you use econometrics modeling, Stata, Amos, even SPSS can be useful to do model specification and study all that. Now, if you have identified the research gap, defined research problem, you have decided on your categories of research to be adopted, you have decided on the philosophical foundation of the research, you look at the research approaches that you have chosen your research design, then after that you did literature review, and then you will have considered a theoretical framework. Everything is done. So once research theoretical framework or conceptual framework is done, then the question comes on data collection, right? But before data collection, from where, from whom I'm going to collect the data, that is called sampling, right? That is called sampling. So this is another component of a research. So the idea of sampling is basically, if you have identified a problem and you see millions of people suffering with that problem, you cannot collect data from everyone. So you will collect data from a small portion of the whole population that you have. So that's what happened, when you go to a market or on the roadside fruit seller, if you're buying oranges, he might just give you a slice to taste. Then he just has a piece of orange and you taste it and you decide to buy. The question is, how do you know all other oranges will have the similar taste? You won't know, right? But will taste having a taste of little, you will generalize it. If you ask the guy, you pick up another orange and ask him, can you please cut and taste it? Will he allow you? Maybe he will allow for another one. But after that, you say, no, I want you to cut this one. He won't do that, right? So you have to decide. You have to generalize by testing the little elements of it. So that's what we do in a research. We identify a research area and problem, and even many people are suffering, but we'll choose few people to collect the data, all right? So that is the idea of sampling. Okay, so this is how we do it in terms of how sampling works. So who do you want to generalize? So you're looking at the total number of population. What population can you get access to? Not all, the whole population will have access to collect the data. So you are looking at the study population. How can you get access to them? That is the sampling frame. And finally, who is in the study? That is a sample. So you have millions of people, but you end up with only a few hundred samples, right? So there are ways of doing it, collecting, deciding on sampling methods and all that. So this is how it is. Your target population, study population, that is your sample, very small portion of the total population being taken. I am not going into details of sampling methods. That's not the topic for today. We can have 3 hours discussion, another webinar on it, right? I cannot go for that. We do have number of random sampling method. There could be 7, and we have 5 kind of non-random sampling, which could be discussed some other time. Okay. So this is what it is, right? This is probably the sampling or random sampling. This is non-probability or non-random sampling. So I'm not going to explain this for today. So when we have decided who are the people I'm going to collect the data, then we proceed with data collection. But there are many ways of collecting the data. The data are divided basically into primary and secondary data. Secondary data are the data already available. Okay, it could be company annual reports. It could be published in the newspaper. Some syndicated organization also available. For example, like your central bank, World Bank, IMF, ministries, and many other sections in important section of a country where the data is available. Those are the secondary data. And primary data is when you are collecting for the first time. Nobody has collected that data before. So you are collecting data using survey questionnaire. You are interviewing people with a semi-structured, unstructured, or structured questionnaire, in-depth interview, or you may have a focus group discussion, brainstorming, and all that. Those are the primary data collection. Okay. Unit of analysis. This is what is very important. Once you collect the data, when you are collecting the data, you have to still keep in mind the research problem that you have identified. Remember, I said in the tree analogy, the problem is rooted in the tree roots. So the data collection got to be from there. So you got to identify the roots where the problem is happening. So if problem is affecting individuals, then you have to collect data from individuals. If the problem is affecting households, then you have to collect the data from households. If the problem is affecting the organization, you're collecting data from the whole organization. You find representative to present organizations or departments, representing the departments. So unit of analysis is the unit which you are going to analyze. The exact place where you are collecting the data is called unit of analysis. It got to be determined very well before you collect the data and do analysis of data. I do understand many times I do attend final Viva with your PhD students. And when we ask the question, what is your unit of analysis? And they're just staring and says, never heard of it. I say, Ayo, this is not something very good we expect from a PhD student. So you got to understand. So we'll ask the student, where did you collect the data? We say, from customers. So it's okay. So your unit of analysis are individuals. So your research problem affecting individual, is it? So that's how we try to understand the students' way of explaining and all that. So there's another very important area which is concern of many. That is basically, if your unit of analysis is individual, make sure your underpinning theories are individual level theory. If your unit of analysis is basically group organization, then you have to make sure your underpinning theory is organization level theory. Okay. Now, how would you know a theory is individual level theory or organization level theory? You have to go back to the original theory when it is written by someone and see what are the assumptions there. The original paper, when they introduce that theory. So look at assumptions. If the assumptions are individual level assumption, it is individual level theory. If assumptions are based on organization, then it is an organization level theory, which you got to be very careful of selecting. If you get a bit naughty, strict examiners, he may catch you on that. You may fail in your research. Now, once you collect the data, the next question comes on data analysis. There's another component of research. And here you have many different software for quantitative, SPSS, PLA, SAMOS, Stata. If it is qualitative, you have NVivo, Atlas T, and many other softwares are available, which are not for the topic for today. And here you have many nuts and bolts and many screws are there. We've got to be really put it at the right place, okay, so that you have right outcome of your research. But with that, I want to speak a bit on the last part of my discussion today. Every research every research have a very special, distinctive, identified research problem. And when you undertake a research, it's a long journey. I have shown you that you may face many obstacles and you have to cross that. It's a slippery journey. So you got to be very strong mentally and physically. That's another very strong nuts, in a research. You got to be physically very strong. Evidence shows, that mental health of PhD researchers demand attention. There's a research published in Nature, one of the famous journal in the world. It says about 30% of PhD students suffers from mental sickness, and many students even they do require a crying room. A crying room. They want to have a specific room where they can go and cry, sit down and cry. So they have troubles and problems and obstacles, and they cannot cross that. So they would like to have some kind of, a place where they can go and then sit down and they can cry. Crying time. That's what they said. If you look at first paragraph here, that some universities, they provide a quiet room for crying time. For crying time. So 29% researcher here, they said they have some kind of mental health problem. Okay, and another research is shows 36% of PhD students sought doctor's help related to anxiety and depression. Okay, so if you are thinking of undertaking research, if you are thinking of undertaking enrolling for PhD study, make sure you are mentally and physically sound before you take it up. All right, with that, I would like to end my presentation for today, and I'll be available to answer if there are any queries and questions. Dr. Haider Shah, the session is now back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Amin. It was so wonderful session, and the way you started it was so wonderful. I loved the way you started, and you gave the example and the analogy of car. It was so wonderful and so attracting. I love that thing. And then, of course, I love the way you asked the 4 questions that you need to ask. I was just thinking all the time that I wish I could have these kind of guidance at the early of my PhD. When I was doing my PhD, all these things came to me during the journey. But if somebody like you would have told me this kind of things, the journey would have been much easier for me. Once again, thank you very much, Prof. Amin, for sharing such a wonderful content and a superb presentation, followed by your full of energy. I love that thing that you were explaining each and every concept with a smiling face, and I could imagine that what wonderful classroom environment you would have in physically on campus, because teacher like you who are so determined and committed, they always create an environment where there's a learning environment. I used to say in the class that the learning environment is very much important, and the way you make a humor and the way you communicate is so wonderful. And I like your comment. Yes, the technology limitation is that we are unable to communicate properly, but at the same time we have this advantage that now we are taking advantage, and we are talking to you and we are learning from you again through this technological medium. It was so wonderful. And Prof, I would like to mention that your tree enology is liked by the audience a lot. In the previous session, we got a very warm response regarding the tree enology, that it provides the bigger picture of the research in a very simple way. And again, in this presentation, you explain again for the newcomers who missed that session. So again, it was very wonderful to see. And I love all the presentation and all the way, and I could see the comment people, they are liking it. And above everything, what I like is the what a great command you have on research. Really, your leadership and your the way you are the top researcher and professor, that are very much visible in your presentation and the talk. And I could see the comments that they mentioned, that the exemplary examples you have given is so wonderful. Thank you very much, Prof, for your wonderful presentation. Now, allow me to ask the few questions. The audience have asked you a few questions, which are very wonderful. And Prof, I would like to mention that most of the questions are from the problem statement. You know, the lot of the PhD student, they are trapped in the problem statement. So we start with the first problem statement question. That is that, Prof, please guide me that some say that the problem statement should not be too long and remain focused. So should we include the empirical or the factual evidences in problem statement? Please guide me. Yes, your take on that, Prof.
All right, thank you. I think the question is very relevant when we read a PhD thesis, especially as examiner. Most
Yes,
of the
Prof.
time we see it's too long. Sometimes even I found 15, 17 pages long. A
Oh
problem is
my
statement,
God.
research problem. And we'll always advise the student, no, part of your research problem can be transferred into literature review.
Yes.
We see many students, it's very common, they will have many things copied from literature and put it in the research problem. We don't expect that from you. Personally, I recommend that research problem or problem statement should not be more than 5-6 pages. It should not be more than that. So what you need to do is you got to highlight research gap with evidence from literature and the industry. Most students, they will have evidences from literature. But I would again say that literature evidence you will have in chapter 2, literature review. So you will pick up some especially identified care from literature and put it there under research problem. But again, it should be backed up with evidence from the industry. Most of the time, we don't see any data evidence from the industry. That's what is lacking most of the time. I believe that with that, it will be a lifesaver for you during your Viva session. You have the identified literature gap and backed up with evidence or data from the industry. That's how you should be writing. You shouldn't be writing too long. We call it KISS, right? KISS. Keep in short and sweet. Keep in short and sweet. That should be the way of writing thesis. My PhD thesis, together with references and output, was only 198 pages. So when I was submitting my thesis, one of my colleagues who was doing PhD with me at the same time, he told me, "Brother, I mean, how come your research thesis is so thin, so lean?" I say, "Why?" He said, "No, my thesis is 500 pages long." I say, "I'm sorry, I don't write unnecessary thing. I only want to write what is relevant and suitable, beneficial for people. I don't waste people's time." So that's how the approach I used to take. Even when I write research papers in journals, you can see most of my papers, I'll finish it within 15 pages. I will not go beyond that. 15 pages, just enough. But I do read research papers which are written 30, 35 pages long papers. And when I read that paper, when I finish up reading the paper, I have difficulty to understand what are the things I can take home away, things from a paper, difficult to get. So when you write a smaller, shorter literature review, people will have easier time to understand. Your research problem will be highlighted, will be shining out. People can see it easily and will identify issues related to your problem easily.
Very nicely said, Prof. I mean, that is the real guidance which people they are looking for, because they have a lot of doubts regarding the research, and what you have mentioned in your presentation as well, that most of the time examiner they catch you in these kind of things. So you have to be very careful and you have to come up with the right things. So that's what Prof. Amin has mentioned. And as a reviewer, particularly, that's very important. Your comment in that perspective is very much important. Prof, we have another question which is again relevant to the problem statement. The student want to ask that, sir, please explain. To my understanding, problem statement is not about solution giving, because we are at the start of the research problem and we will come to know at the end. So please guide us. Can we explain why our solution is more important, or it is the part of the conclusion? Yes, Prof.
Well, when you write chapter 1, basically you will have significance of the study. You will try to argue why your research is so important. So you can try to focus on the theoretical significance, practical significance, and all that. But that is just for chapter 1 at the beginning. You are trying to plot your story. So that's how it is, because when you watch a movie, as I always give the example, when you start watching a movie, either Hollywood movie or any movie that you have, first few minutes you watch, then after that you decide whether to continue or not to continue. Because all movie, the plot should be at the beginning. So your chapter 1, that's where you will be creating the plot by showing the research problem. So somebody read your research problem is short and sweet, and they understand, oh yeah, this is something very important. The problem is there, and it requires some solution. Good to see, the student taking up this research. And then when they read the significance of the study in chapter 1, they feel, oh yeah, it's very important. Yeah, it's true. Then he will proceed to read chapter 2. And then when he finish reading chapter 5, he would like to see what are the outcomes there. So when you watch a movie, at the beginning you see the plot. At the end, you see the actors dying or actress dying, and you end up crying after watching the movie. Or you start enjoying, you start like feeling wonderful movie, you enjoy watching it at the end of it. So when you have a research problem, research gap identified, research problem defined, and you show them in chapter 1, then of course at the end of it, people would like to see what kind of solutions are you giving. If the solution is not connected, or the solutions are not connected with the identified research gap and defined research problem, that you have failed. Because research is just one piece of work. Everything is interconnected. And that's how I presented today's session. Because I said these are the nuts and bolts. They're all interconnected. If one nuts and bolts are not there, the whole piece of car will be broken down. So research is like that. Every parts of it are interconnected. So if you have research identified, problem identified, research gap identified correctly, and yet I cannot find any solution at the end, so that's it. You destroy whatever plot you have created. It's like you watch a movie, you see the plot at the beginning, and then after that, at the end of it, you feel so disgusted. You don't feel like it was really something wonderful to watch. So that's how research is like that.
Once again, Prof. Amin, very nicely you have told the answer. And I like the way you give the examples, and particularly the movie analogy which you have given. It's very interesting, and now people can understand it very easily. And you have rightly mentioned that these are the things, if you don't interrelated it properly, you are not going to make a proper movie. So this analogy is wonderful, Prof. And that's the beauty. When you talk to the expert, they will always make things in a simplified way so that anyone could understand easily. Thank you very much for such a wonderful answer, Prof. Amin, once again. Prof. Amin, there is one PhD student who is very keen, and he is in a kind of trouble stage. He wants to ask one question from you that, Prof, you have mentioned very rightly no, the question is, Prof, that I'm a PhD student and at the proposal stage, Prof. I hear the word that the problem statement is the gist of thesis. Is it necessary to have problem from literature review with the references, or if it is from the industry with the little or no references and literature? In that case, can we make a problem statement on that too? If yes, please guide me on a little on that, please.
As I have discussed during my presentation, personally, I will not agree to propose a research problem through literature review alone, even though you have a lot of citations. When I do visit industries, the industry people, they do have a lot of complaint on PhDs. They say PhDs are on a very small, specified topic, and it doesn't have any application in the industry. Even I had argument and debate with the chairman of a bank in my country. He was arguing with me that PhD is nothing. I say, why do you say that?
Yes.
And I said, you are talking to someone who also completed PhD. So somehow I feel really not happy with you. So you are just rejecting our 3 years work. Say PhD is nothing. Then he said, the reason I say, because I have talked to many PhD graduates and they cannot show me the application in the industry. It's true. We can see many theses. Too much of knowledge-based work without any relation to what is happening in the industry. The academics, the reason we teach students, why? We produce skillful people for the industry. We produce good citizen, productive citizen will contribute to nation building. That's why we teach in a classroom. We do research for the same reason. We do research, we spend 3 years for PhD or 5 years for PhD. We spend 4 years for undergraduate program, 1 or 2 years for master's program. All time that we spend for only reason, we want to contribute to the nation building through finding a good job in our career. So if you are doing a PhD and writing research problem only from literature review, to me, it's not acceptable. I would expect literature gap identified with citation together with evidence from the industry. That makes it stronger. That's how I would like to see it. You may differ from me. Of course, academic area, we can always differ from each other. That's the beauty of it. But personally, I am a firm believer of identifying research problem and combining the knowledge with the industry problems that we have. Industry, academia collaboration, that is the topic of today. We have only realized from about last 5-6 years that link is missing. So now every university in the world having discussion of how can you collaborate the academia with the industry. That's what is going on now. It is because we failed to connect our research with the industry. And that is now on the discussion table. And we are connecting. Almost every research now are connected to the industry. That's what we are doing. Okay, so I hope I answered your question, brother. Basically, you need to have support from literature as well as evidence from the industry. That will make it a research problem. I don't say it's a literature gap. I would say it is a research gap. which is combined with literature and the industry.
Yes, superb answer once again, Prof. Amin. Very wonderful suggestion you have given, and yes, that is what we are lacking nowadays. That we are missing the linkage between the industry and the academia. And yeah, of course, a lot of my PhD students, when they come to me, I usually recommend them that go and see what is happening in the industry, so that we could have the pragmatic review. Very nicely said, Prof. Amin. The same thing goes in the academia, and you mentioned very rightly that the beauty of the academia is that we could differ, but again we have to come up with the counter arguments. What are the arguments for that? And you have wonderful argument for that, that we must have the industry references for that. I hope that would help the student in answering these things. Prof, we have another question that the one person wants to ask, that Prof, you have mentioned very rightly about the problem statement that it should be focused and limited. But please guide me that should we be incorporating more jargons in order to look it more better? Please guide them.
More jargons.
Yes.
Uh,
Make it more fancy.
Understood.
Yeah.
If you listen to my presentation, if you look at the way I speak, I never use any jargons. I don't use any difficult word. I never. The reason we communicate is for people to understand me. So if I use jargons and difficult words, not many people will understand me. I know I have listened to a few professors, and I have difficulty understanding what they try to say because my English level proficiency is not enough. Can you think of me being a professor, even I don't understand someone who speaks, then what will happen to the student? So his purpose of communication is just defeated. People don't understand him. So what is the purpose of talking to people then? If you are possessing some kind of knowledge, the reason we gain knowledge for the purpose of sharing. And when I speak and people don't understand, then the purpose of sharing is defeated. So the purpose of gaining knowledge is gone. Okay, so I'm gaining knowledge because I want to share. People should be benefiting from me. If people don't get benefited from my knowledge, then the purpose of gaining my knowledge was not right. So if you are writing a research problem with jargons, definitely I won't like it. Personally, I won't pay for it. Okay, it should be jargon free, easy style of writing. Um, I hope you don't mind. I won't mention the country. I think to be safer. If you read a book written in US and a book written in Asia, especially in our subcontinent, you will see the striking difference between these two. If I read American books, I don't have to open dictionary at all. But if I read a book written by subcontinent people, I have to open dictionary many times. Okay, so people have that tendency of showing off. Many people, they feel like using jargons and difficult language, all that people will feel I'm very knowledgeable, I'm somebody very big. I personally don't feel that. I feel that knowledgeable people in Malaysia, we compare them with what you call a paddy. So not paddy in Malay language. What do you call in English? Very simple, but yeah, paddy in English, right? The paddy, the plant that you see, the rice that
Yes.
we get, right? The rice that we get. So that plant, as young time is looks very green and very strong. When it gets about flowerish, it started like going down a bit, and then when it become yellowish, when it become ripe, when harvesting to be done, to be taken down for uses, right? That time already bore a lot. So a knowledgeable people should be like that. The more knowledgeable you are, the more humble you are, the more honest you are, the more beneficial and helpful to people. That is the indication that you are knowledgeable. So we have to look at our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was so friendly, so humble, so beneficial, so helpful. Any, you just say anything about him, everybody has access to him. Everybody could understand him. He never talked too long. He never used jargons. He never used difficult words. Everybody can easily understand him. This is how a knowledgeable people should believe, should behave. So I would propose that when you are writing research problem, it is better, advisable, suggested to avoid jargons. Use simple easy flowing English, good flow with logical sequence. That's how we put it. It should be flowing down with good sequence. Okay, logical sequence. You should flowing down one after another. Every chapter, every paragraph that you end, the next paragraph connecting with the earlier paragraph continues. So it should be flowing. Ideas should be flowing with logical sequence, going one after another, without mass of jargons. I don't prefer that.
Yeah. A superb answer once again, Prof. Amin. And what nicely you have put it in words that yes, if you keep it simple, the people are going to understand it. And the most important thing about it is to convey the message to the audience, and particularly who are reading your thesis, that what you want to say. And it should be a jargon free. And what nice examples you have given. So awesome, wonderful, Prof. Hats off to you. The way you explain the things are so interesting, and then I could listen to you for hours and hours, because the way you speak is so wonderful, wonderful content. Prof, we have two questions from the previous session. One of the postgraduate student asked the question from our previous session. First, he wanted to thank you for such a great learning session. It helped him a lot, and most of his concepts are clear. And now, regarding to the literature review, he has two questions, Prof. So the first question, he has asked you that can I do a systematic review and meta-analysis focusing on publication bias? Yes, please.
Systematic literature review and meta-analysis are two different things.
Yes.
Systematic literature review can be done with few literature available, but meta-analysis you need abundance of literature.
Yeah.
These are two totally different things. If you're doing a meta-analysis, that should be enough. But during the meta-analysis, you can employ the systematic review. That can be done. Okay, it can be done. Can be combined. Can be combined.
Very nicely said once again. And the second question, Prof, he has asked is how do we choose a quality journal for a systematic literature review paper? Some guidance, please.
It's a very difficult question.
Yes, Prof. Very difficult.
When it comes to research methodology, there are very specialized journals available on it. So if you are looking at only articles on how to conduct systematic literature review, then you got to look at those journals. Because usually the papers that we publish, either management, marketing, or even medical engineering, those papers that we see, they do have literature review, but they may not employ systematic literature review technique. So it's just normal literature review. So if you want to learn about systematic literature review, then there are some specialized journals that you got to refer to. Okay.
Yes,
I cannot recommend any at this moment. I can't remember any specialized journal on systematic literature review. I'm sorry for that. I cannot say or recommend any journal for you to read, but definitely there are a few that focuses on systematic literature review.
Yes, very nicely said once again, Prof. Prof, last two questions, because I know your time is so precious, and
No,
so
it's
many.
all right.
One of the MPhil student from Bahria Business School, he wants to ask the question that data collection is very important aspect of the research. So he says that most of the time people, they do not take it seriously, particularly filling the questionnaire. They just tick the different options, and then they get rid of the questionnaire. So he wants to ask that please explain how to deal with this issue. Yes, please.
This is a very important question. Very important question. Those of us, we play with data. Outside, we play with data because when you collect the data, when you start running, there's so many things we do. Many times we see not even a single hypothesis accepted. Then we have to employ certain legal acceptable way of screening the data. That's what you do. But there are also people, they use some unethical way of, methods being employed to clean the data. Definitely, we don't recommend that. That's the purpose of sampling techniques. You have to understand your total population, and then from there, you got to be very careful of selecting the population. If you choose respondents wrongly, definitely that's what you're going to have. They will just tick, 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 tick. I have seen many many responses in the questionnaire. It started with 3, ended up with 3, everything neutral. Some even very funny, they start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They just play.
Yes, bro.
Just play. They don't understand that this data is so valuable to you, so important for you to conduct your research and get your degree or publish a good paper. So that's where the sampling techniques comes in. So you have to understand the audience, the respondents, and then employ the right kind of sampling techniques to collect the data. We do also suggest that some cases you need to appoint a research assistant, or you got to go out by yourself. While you distribute question, you sit down beside the respondents to fill in the questionnaire for you, so that he feels like obligated and he spends some time. It's not like within a minute, tick, 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 and just submit it. So that could be something could be helpful. Either if you can go to the ground and distribute by yourself, and let the person fill in front of you, or give him some time to fill in for you and collect it, or could be research assistant could be appointed to assist you to collect the data.
Yes.
I did have a situation, a PhD student came to see me. First he communicated, not from Malaysia, he came from outside, I don't mention the country. He took a flight to come to see me. The reason is his data he keyed in SPSS, but that cannot be transferred into PLS. So cannot be. So PLS, we call it what? Smart PLS, remember? We call it smart PLS, smart PLS, fourth generation language. SPSS was third generation languages. PLS is fourth generation language. So it's a very smart software, very smart software. So the software did not accept the data. He cannot transfer the data from SPSS to PLS. So he went to many people, nobody could help. So someone has told him to see me. So he communicated with me through email, and he came through the flight to Malaysia to see me, going through all the trouble. So he came to my office. I said, okay, please sit down. Then I said, okay, open your computer, let me see. I tried and also I couldn't. So I said, okay, let me see your data. So when I look at your real data, I see the responses. Say, for example, question 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These 6 question responses exactly similar to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Exactly
Oh,
similar. So I
okay.
say, how can that be possible? These 5 questions responses, 6 questions exactly similar to other 6. How can it be possible? What did you do it? I say, how did you collect the data? I say, first of all, did you really collect the data? He say, yes. I say, how did you collect? He say, actually, my father helped. I say, okay. So I look at his face. I say, brother, actually, you did not collect the data. You just created the data. You just
Yes.
fill in by yourself in the software. And you
Mm.
wanted so you fill up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you copied and pasted it to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So the software is so smart. He caught you for cheating and did not allow you to transfer the data from spaces to PLS. So that what happened. So he was so shy. He was so shy. After I caught him, and then he just closed his computer. He said, "Prof, thank you very much. Can I leave?" I said, "Sure, you can leave." So that's how it is. So definitely you should not be employing any illegal techniques. It should not be. You are getting a degree. A piece of paper is true, but with that paper you will get jobs, and with that job you are getting salary. So your salary is not going to be legitimate salary. It's going to
Yes.
be haram salary. It's not going to be haram salary. You should not be doing that. So
Mm.
certain ethical ways are there in everything. In everything, there are ethical ways of doing. It could be a bit difficult, but we got to adopt that. Okay, so do a legitimate research that is acceptable to anyone, and you feel your consciousness. You feel like I did the right thing. You don't feel like I did something wrong, and you are always afraid. Am I going to be caught? Am I going to be taught? That kind of thing mentality would be always there. So don't do that. You're not cheating yourself, you are cheating the whole world. Because when people read the paper, nobody will think that you have doctored the data, you have changed the data, you have distorted the data. They will not think about it. They will just think, oh, yeah, it's a very good research, and they will start citing you. So please, so I think it's very clear the suggestion has given. You may distribute by yourself, or you may employ research assistant, and be careful of selecting the sampling techniques to select the respondents rightly. Then you should not have the problem that you have raised. Sorry, I have taken too long time to answer this question.
Prof, a superb answer followed by the wonderful message, Prof. And that's the beauty when I talk to you. I learn a lot, and how you relate and connect the different dots is so wonderful. You have given the suggestion how to overcome this problem. Along with that, you have given the wonderful message of being ethical and how it has the right implication towards the society and to your field as well. I love the way you answer, Prof. It's so wonderful. And Prof, what I was thinking when you mentioned the slide on mental and physical health. So I was thinking that somebody will ask the question, and yes, we have one question regarding that thing. During my PhD, I used to say that very proudly that I cried a lot because sometimes you feel like a lost. And then I do believe that the yes, the mental health and the physical health is so much important in the journey of PhD particular. So we have one question, and in comment section you can see that the question is, any tips if we stuck while in journey of research? Sometimes we feel lost, blank, feel hard to continue and finish it. Yes, your suggestion for that person, please, Prof.
Yeah, I think all of us we face difficulties, including me. At one point of my research time, I thought of stopping, and then my wife was very strong. She says, "No, you cannot stop. You came here to do PhD, finish it off." So she was beside me to support me. I think most of us we go through that. Don't get disheartened, don't get frustrated, disappointed when you have a situation where you find it very difficult to cross. At the beginning of my slides, I have shown you the difficulties, the journey. It's a slippery roads and all that. You need many people to help. Seek help from people. So seek help from people. When there is a problem, of course, there are solutions. The question is to how to get that solution out of it, from somewhere. So if you're mentally sick, not really feeling well, talk to people, socialize with people. Sometimes just stop thinking of research. So just go out, play football, whatever games you like, socialize with people, do networking. Sometimes just take a break for 1 month, just travel somewhere, spend your time, enjoy your life. Do that. While you are doing a research, some techniques that I learned recently that are very helpful. For example, like while you are writing up and you get caught, you cannot just write another line or another sentence. Just sit down, close your eyes for 5 minutes. It helps a lot. Just 5 minutes, just close it down. Just close your eyes and stop thinking anything. Just be yourself for 5 minutes. Helps. There are many breathing techniques available, which are available in YouTube. The current one, the one I do now, I'll close my eyes and I will take breath for 4 seconds, and then I'll release it through my mouth for 8 seconds. Okay, so I will take full breath, so full stomach, full breath, and then I'll hold for a while, then I'll release it through my mouth. So if I take it for 4 seconds, I'll release it for 8 seconds. There are many different breathing techniques available. Those also helps you. It helps also reduce your blood pressure. If you do it in the night and in the morning, it reduces blood pressure a lot also. So there are many things available. Things are because of internet and technological advancement. Things become very simple for us. Just go to YouTube. Any kind of problem you have, just go for research, and you'll find the solutions there. So that's how you got to be mentally strong. And if you have a problem, you have to talk to people. You cannot be keeping in yourself. It will burn you. You will suffer more and more. Share with people. Talk to people. The one you will trust. It could be a supervisor. It could be someone else. Talk to people. Definitely solutions are there.
Yeah, very nicely said once again, Prof. And the way you are giving the tips is so wonderful, and that's what people have advised me, that take a break and go somewhere else, talk to the new people, and there is always room for improvement, and there are always people who could help you, and people like you who are the gurus and leaders in the field. We must seek your guidance in these kind of things, and thank you very much for your wonderful suggestion, and thank you very much for being in this field and serving us and the community, the researcher, and to the world at large. People like you are the really gem. What I used to say that yes, of course, you are the role model which we follow, and while contributing to the world, you are doing a fabulous job. Hats off to you, Prof, for whatever you are doing. It's so wonderful. That is actually the contribution in a true sense, in a sense that you people are giving the different workshops, the trainings, and the guidance, and all the things. And Prof, I would proudly say that when you mentioned that you have gone through the hard times as well, so that matters a lot, because people are looking at you that you are so successful in a very wonderful position, and even though you have suffered and you have gone through such a hardships, so that is kind of motivation for them, that yes, of course, there is nothing for free in this world, you have to pay the price for that. And I could understand that how many sacrifices you have made to reach to this position. So wonderful, Prof. In the last, I would say that yes, again, what a fabulous session with you, what a learning session with you. Learn a lot, even though I did my PhD in 2017, but still I learned a lot from you again in this session. And life is like a learning process. It keeps on moving, and we learn from each other, and particularly from people like you who are the leaders, gurus, are so wonderful. Thank you very much for such an elaborative presentation and wonderful content. As you know, Prof, that in the last we asked our guests to give the concluding remarks and message to the world. So, what is your message and your concluding remarks to the world as a teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator? Yes, Prof, please.
Well, I'm not sure how did I respond last webinar that you had.
It was wonderful, Prof. Warm
I
response
think,
got
I think that's
from the people.
that's
Yeah.
the most hardest question that I get from you at the end. So after going through exhaustive session, then you give me a difficult question to answer. Now, well, I think I have given quite a lot of messages during my presentation and during my question and answer session. For me, I'm a true believer of hard working. I don't believe in smart work. I believe in hard work. I believe in the slogan that I have read somewhere: 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. So 99% hard work and 1% luck. So that's how I look at. So if you want to be successful in your life, there's no other room. There's no other alternative than working hard. Time is precious. But once time is gone, you can never get it back. Utilize the time when you have it. Okay. The many of our friends used to study with us in the school level. They are no more. Many of our friends studied with us even after university. They are no more. They all expired. So since we have the life given by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, use it appropriately for useful things. So every minute that we pass are important. So use it wisely for productive causes. All right? As a researcher, every minute is precious. Every minute is important. Even though you're not in the study decks, you're walking, jogging, or playing, still your mind could be still working, thinking of something for research, contributing to the society, and all that. So with that, thank you very much, Dr. Haider Shah, again for inviting me and providing me these avenues to share some of my little knowledge and understanding that I have. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Prof. Aminul Islam, for a wonderful presentation and the content and the way you have given the message to the world. Yes, and indeed, we get the life once and we have a limited time. So, how to contribute it in a better way, that would matter a lot. Wonderful. And in the last, indeed, I would say that yes, research is organized activity, and you have to understand the process of research and carry out in the right way, because only then it will be a worthy enough to have implication, that practical implications, theoretical implication, and managerial implications. So do follow the distinguished guest speaker through his research work, and you can email him for future learning and guidance. He is very generous and is always ready to help the people. You can watch his YouTube channel as well. Moreover, I would say that a wonderful explanation, a powerful content which the great speaker has already elaborated will help you to learn and develop your understanding regarding the research. Take advantage of the all information shared today and the knowledge, the important tips and suggestions shared by the expert. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you once again, Prof. Aminul Islam. And I would also like to thank our audience who joined us. If you have any additional question about the information shared today, please email to us, or you can directly connect to the speaker through his social media as well as through his email. We'll provide the slides as we have provided the previous slides to the people who joined us last time. And this time again, we would say that yes, we will be emailing you again the slides. Thank you all for your support and liking our sessions. Stay tuned because many more sessions are coming ahead of the coming days. Thank you very much. Stay blessed.